Hey folkies! The Nyckelharpa, as great an instrument as it is, has a few wrong or silly clichés and ideas associated to it. I have addressed several of them in a satirical video that I released on the 1st of April. However, I thought that some of them were actually important to discuss in a slightly more serious manner, and that's what I'm going to do in this video. In general, I believe this video will be valuable mostly to people who don't know much about Nyckelharpa yet, beginners or people who have just discovered the instrument, but I think that more advanced players can also find at least motivation and maybe a good laugh, and I hope some inspiration and informations as well. Without further ado, if you want to hear about Nyckelharpa history, Viking Age, strings and bows and keyboards, and get some motivation for practicing your Nyckelharpa playing, keep watching. Wrong cliché number 1. Nyckelharpa is a Viking instrument. This is absolutely incorrect. The Viking Age ended around 1000, and the first Nyckelharpa sources that we have are from the 1300s. So there are minimum 3 centuries in between Vikings and Nyckelharpa. It is not because something is ancient and Scandinavian that it is Viking. It can be of many different time periods because stuff happened in Scandinavia before the Viking Age, and also much happened after the Viking Age, and the Nyckelharpa came afterwards. This is a quite common misconception from people who don't know much about Scandinavian history, that, you know, it was pretty much the Viking Age and then it was the modern time with IKEA and Swedish design and technology. And I see where this is coming from. The Viking Age is the most well-known event of Scandinavian history, and therefore it has a tendency to supplement all Scandinavian history in the international brain somehow. But it's incorrect. It is a bit like reducing the French people to the Lascaux paintings. Very important paintings, important for history, very interesting, but very much reducing an entire people and their history to one thing is not really neither respectful nor correct. Also, one thing to mention and to remember, the idea of the Vikings playing worshipping tunes on their Nyckelharpas for their gods is even more wrong by the fact that all the sources we have, or almost, for early Nyckelharpas are from churches, usually church paintings. It does not mean that Nyckelharpa was a church instrument only, but at least it had a very positive reputation in the church, so ditch the cliché of Vikings playing Nyckelharpa at once, and also remember 2 more things. Nyckelharpa was not exclusively found in Sweden during the Middle Ages. The sources we have are as well from Germany and Italy as from Sweden, and actually Denmark too. What happened is that Nyckelharpa survived through the times only in Sweden, and that's where the modern types of Nyckelharpas were developed. That is why it is nowadays considered a Swedish traditional instrument, but it's not a Swedish invention per se. The chromatic keyboard is, and was invented less than 100 years ago, by the way, in the 1930s. Second little thing to remember, Scandinavian peoples have not all been Vikings. Vikings means mostly the culture of southern Scandinavia that went raiding and having a lot of trade with especially England and France, and also the eastern part, if you want to consider it Viking as well, although it has other names like Rus. And these Vikings went down the east and went into Russia and as far as Constantinople. But there were other peoples in Scandinavia at the time. There were, for example, the Finns, who were having a slightly different culture than the actual Vikings. And also there were the Sami people, who are very often forgotten. And although they very probably had contacts with what we call the Vikings, they were having a very different way of life and culture. And it feels to me that it can get disrespectful to ignore people who are not Vikings altogether, although they were on these lands, in these regions as well. for many centuries as well. Useless concept number 2. You need to be of Scandinavian ancestry to play the Nyckelharpa. This is a message I get actually quite often. People write to me telling me that they have just discovered they have some Scandinavian ancestry and this led them to discover the Nyckelharpa, and now they really much want to know more about it and play it. And to be honest, great. I'm super happy that learning about your family history led you to discover this amazing instrument and also all the stuff that goes along with it, the music, the history and everything. However, it is not the only, nor the only valid reason for playing the Nyckelharpa, and you don't need to have Scandinavian ancestry to play the Nyckelharpa. The only thing you need to be is interested, loving the sound, wanting to learn to play it. That's it. And it doesn't matter if you're from Brazil, Congo, Hong Kong, Poland, or you don't exactly know. The only thing that is important is that you want to learn the thing and that you love it. Welcome. Silly behavior number 3. When you get your first Nyckelharpa, you are so amazed that you want to post pictures everywhere on social media and show off your new cool instrument. This is something that happens quite often, and that, to be honest, I understand very much. I think we all do, because we've all been there, we've all gotten our first Nyckelharpa, and we've all felt oh so cool by just having it in our hands, especially when we've been waiting for a long time. And there is actually nothing wrong per se in taking pictures and posting them online. Being excited and saying it to other people is totally fine, and actually it's quite cute to watch, to be honest. The only little problem I see with that is that Nyckelharpa has what I call the wow effect. It looks extremely complex, extremely cool, it's impressive, and people have a tendency to be like amazed, even if you don't know how to play it yet or at all. Just you have one in your hands, you have one in a picture, people are just drooling. The thing is that the people who are receptive to this wow effect, who are impressed, are usually people who don't know anything about the instrument. And all they see is the looks. And they forget that the Nyckelharpa is a music instrument. It's supposed to be played. It's meant to make music. It can look as cool as it wants. If it's not played well, if it's not making nice music, it's pretty much useless. It is not a prop, a decoration, it is a music instrument. And as much as it's not wrong per se, again, to use this wow effect and to get a little ego boost, whether it's conscious or not, many of us do use the wow effect of Nyckelharpa for presenting well and everything. I'm holding it here in this video. It should not get over the playing of the music, which is what it's made for. And if you are very vocal and very show-offy with just having the Nyckelharpa, but your music is just not there yet because you're just a beginner, and that's fine to be a beginner. We've all been there, we've all started from zero. But if you get over the top proud, you might just appear as show-off and not really a musician, and the contact you might establish with already experienced players might not be the best from the start. Also here I'm just gonna give you my personal opinion about what is important when you get your first Nyckelharpa. I think social media has made us believe that what doesn't happen online, what is not shown in pictures on social media, is not really happening or is not true or something. But this is wrong. The real life is very much happening, and when you get a Nyckelharpa, what is, in my opinion, the most important thing is not to post pictures or videos or whatever. It is to enjoy the damn thing. It is to take time to admire it, to tame it, to learn about it, and to just enjoy finally having it in your hands. So my advice would be disconnect your phone, your apps, your internet, your whatever, and just take time to be nerdy and happy about it. And I hope you are. Very, very happy. Unstable obsession number 4. You need a specific stand to display and or store your Nyckelharpa. This is a quite common belief, and people want to have their Nyckelharpa like put like this on some kind of stand, like a guitar. And actually it is not the best idea. From what I know, there are no Nyckelharpa stands on the market at the moment. So either you take, for example, a guitar stand and you modify it, or you have to build your own Nyckelharpa stand from scratch. The problem with guitar stands is that they are not meant for Nyckelharpa. Nyckelharpa is heavy in the head because of the keyboard, and therefore it is not really suited for the vertical position that well. It has a tendency to trip, and many stands that would be perfectly fine for a guitar would not be adapted for Nyckelharpa for this reason. Most professionals recommend using a chair. It's important that it has a flat back, so the Nyckelharpa won't glide on it, and you use these two big pegs there that most Nyckelharpas have, and you just hang your Nyckelharpa on it and you let it rest on the chair. A chair is very stable. It is meant for human beings, which are much heavier than a Nyckelharpa, to sit on, and as long as it's a solid, decent chair, it will work perfectly. Most professionals use this and recommend this, and it's for a reason. Then what you can also do is just simply to use your case. I usually have my Nyckelharpa in her case. I usually put it actually in the other direction, opposite direction, just because it works better like this in my case for me. But depending on your case, you can put your Nyckelharpa on it as well sometimes if it's a box, like wooden box, hard case, or just in the case. It's the best way to store it. It's solid, it's made for it, it's meant for it. I mean, you can also just have Nyckelharpa on a bench or something. Usually just store it flat. It's much better than trying to store it like this. This looks cool, but it's not really recommended. Negligent belief number 5. Whichever kind of curved stick with a few horsehairs is gonna work as a bow. The thing is, you cannot get a good result with bad tools. You want the best possible tools, and a bow is a very important tool in your Nyckelharpa playing. It is not just an accessory, it is what you use for creating the music. It's the one that makes the music, so you want something that works. I've seen so many crappy bows, it's very disappointing. And the thing is, you don't even need to get a super high-end bow like a Condi or something. If you don't have much money, just buy the Geva bow that is on Tomman. I should really get a partnership with them because I recommend this bow everywhere. It is cheap. For a bow under $100 euros is really cheap. And it is really good quality. For this price, it's the best deal you can get. It is sturdy, it sounds good, it's nothing fancy, but it really works. I have recorded an entire album with it, no problem, totally recommend. So there is no excuse in having a crappy bow. Lazy idea number 6. You do not need to tune your Nyckelharpa. Well, duh, it's a stringed instrument. It has strings that will glide and slightly stretch with time. It has a lot of wood that will expand and retract depending on the humidity in the air. You need to tune if you don't want to sound completely out of tune, as every other string instrument and many other types of instruments actually. And this is valid for the melody strings, but also for the resonance strings, because you need your resonance strings to have the same wavelength as the notes that you will play in the melodies. If they don't, they will not ring, and in that case they're completely useless. Why would you keep something that you don't use? What makes a Nyckelharpa sound so nice with this kind of natural reverb that it has are the resonance strings and the fact that they are resonating with what you play. So tune your resonance strings. Seriously, I tune them pretty much every time before I play. You don't need to do it as often, but as often as possible. In general, when someone starts feeling the Nyckelharpa not sounding as well anymore and are a bit frustrated with the sound, it's very often that they just haven't tuned their resonance strings in a while. That's why it didn't sound good. Muffled sound number 7. You do not need to clean your instrument. Well, no, actually it's quite important to clean your Nyckelharpa, especially the strings where you play, because the rosin and the dust will accumulate and they will create like a coating on the strings, and that will dampen the strings after a while, so they will not ring good, and again you're gonna lose sound. Also, you should clean under the strings, because the rosin will also come under from your playing, will accumulate, and with time it can damage the wood and varnish. If you remove it often, it just won't have time to accumulate, it will not be hard to remove, so just do it every time after you've played. I have some kind of simple, soft cotton cloth that I wash quite often, and you just brush your strings and under. Takes 20 seconds, keeps your Nyckelharpa healthy and sounding good. Narrow mindset number 8. You shall only play Viking and or Swedish folk music on the Nyckelharpa. First, about Viking music, again, Nyckelharpa and Vikings, not the same thing, not historical, not associated, stop with this cliché. Viking music, we don't know how it sounded like. We have found a few instruments from the Viking Age, but we don't know how they were played, which style they played, we don't know. The bands which play Viking music nowadays actually play modern music, very often with lots of electronics, and they use Viking themes like the mythology and the way of life and the sagas and this kind of stuff. And sometimes they also use ancient instruments. Sometimes there are instruments that were actually found during Viking Age, and sometimes they are just a little bit ancient and cool and practical and sounding good, like the Nyckelharpa. If this is the music you love and if you want to play that on Nyckelharpa, please do. Just remember that it is not historically accurate at all, that it is not Viking music, and that this is not a Viking instrument. Still not. Sorry, it won't change. Then about the Swedish folk music. Nyckelharpa has evolved in Uppland, in the Swedish folk music scene. So that is where you find the highest number of players of the instrument and also the best masters on the Nyckelharpa. Therefore, I think that it's a very good idea to at least give it a shot, at least try a little bit, learn a few tunes, listen to those masters, and have a foot in that scene to have nice contacts and find the people who also play the instrument, who have tips and everything. However, you really don't have to play Swedish folk music if this is not what you like. Nyckelharpa is chromatic, which means it can play in all keys. It's a very polyvalent instrument. You can play whatever you want on it. If you want to play baroque, jazz, classical, pop, metal, you name it, please do. Poor idea number 9. The upper keyboard is just decoration. This is a quite common problem, and I have had it also for quite a while. Climbing in the keyboard is difficult. It is sometimes even a bit scary. It requires practice so that you hit the right keys. It's like the rest of Nyckelharpa playing, the bowing especially. It is requiring practice, so time and energy and a critical mind. And it can be easy to get stuck in there and never climb because of the difficulty of it. But these keys are meant to be used. That's why they are here. They are a part of your instrument, and you are missing out many notes and a big part of your Nyckelharpa if you're not using these keys. So just take a little scale, a little tune that has a little bit of climbing, and start practicing. I suggest you practice both looking and with closed eyes. If you need, for example, stickers or some kind of marking stuff that you can easily remove in the beginning, just to remember that this is this key you have to press or something like that, do it. There is no shame in marking something. It's done on violins all the time and other instruments. Just do what you need, but practice climbing up there, and you will discover a whole new part of your instrument that will expand your music so much. I can tell you, when you have had difficulties to climb, as it was my case, and you practice it a lot, and you get more and more familiar, and then you nail that tune with this hard climbing thing, you feel so great. You are proud of yourself, you have overcome your difficulty, and you discover a new sound. It's just win-win. It's absolutely great. So I highly recommend that you put in the effort. Even if you prefer low sounds, it's my case, I prefer to play down there, but it's also so nice to be able to play up there. Stagnation number 10. You don't need critics, and you don't need courses, you don't need advice for playing on the Nyckelharpa. What do all very good musicians have in common? they never think that they are done learning. They want to learn more. They know that they can learn more. They know that there is always something to improve. If you want to become a truly good Nyckelharpa player yourself, you need to have that kind of mindset. You need to accept and to acknowledge that there will always be more to learn. There will always be room for improvement, and you will need to be willing to do the effort and to put in the energy and the time. I personally find progress to be a fantastic thing. It's one of the best feelings that I know of. To feel that something was hard and then it becomes more and more familiar and you nail it more and more, and at some point it's just one of the tools that you can use. And therefore I really encourage you to take courses, take lessons. You don't need to take many, but sometimes, especially when you feel that you are a bit stagnating, go for a private lesson with a master that you really admire, or go to a workshop that is happening, follow a course online, or even if you don't want to pay anything, you can watch videos. You know, there are people who make videos online that you can follow for learning more about the Nyckelharpa. Subscribe to the channel if you want more videos. In my experience, you will never lose money nor time by going to a lesson, a course, a workshop or something. Maybe what you will get from the teacher is not exactly something that you think you need right now. It's not exactly your style or something, but take it anyways. Put it in your toolbox, and at some point it might come in handy. In the satirical video, I mentioned that teachers are always gonna crush you and try to make you just like little copies of themselves. Well, this is a sign of very bad teachers, and you should run away from them and never look back. But from the Nyckelharpa players that I know, the teachers that I know in this community, they are pretty much all sweethearts. They might be very stubborn and vocal about some stuff because they're human beings and they are passionate about something and they have their ideas and opinions, but none of them is like this kind of crushing teacher that can be found somewhere else. At least not that I have met. In general, I highly encourage you to tap into this incredible resource that is the Nyckelharpa community. People who like Nyckelharpa are true nerds, and they know lots of stuff and they discuss stuff and they love to talk about it, and there is so much there to learn. You can ask for advice, you can ask for feedback, you can ask for information, tips and tricks. You will learn tons just by being a bit present in the community. Also, about critics, sometimes you will have people criticizing you in a mean way. Humans, you know, it's gonna happen, especially if you dare to put yourself out there and show your music. You will get mean comments, you will get critics that you don't like to read or to hear. But even the ones that are very mean and not well-meaning at all, usually they hide a teeny tiny grain of truth. It's not always easy to find this truth, especially when it's really not nicely said, but if you manage to taking the critic without listening to the tone and just taking the little thing that you could actually turn into your advantage, that's a mindset that will carry you very far. My tip would be just to be humble and take note of what people tell you, and also dare to put yourself out there. It is scary to post a video of your playing, but if you do it in a very humble way, like, hey, I've just learned this tune, or I've just learned this technique, what do you think? What could I improve still? You will probably get very nice response and very good tips from people. You don't have to agree nor to follow every critic and tip and idea and suggestion that is sent to you, but you can still listen to them and maybe notice that actually, yeah, there is something to take there. So that's it for me today. I hope this video was informative and also motivating, maybe. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share and all this YouTube stuff. If you find my videos informative, useful, enjoyable, you can support me on Patreon, link in the description. I know that my latest videos have been either talking like this one or just silly like the previous one, and not really about music itself and technique. I will be back to more technique and playing and music in general in the coming weeks, so just stay tuned. And in the meantime, I hope you are well and you are having a lot of fun playing and listening to music. Hej då!